You are becoming far more observant than you used to be. It's something about like you pausing more often before you respond to people, and sometimes you may just like not even respond at all. There's like the sense of you noticing when people are like, it's giving the energy if you're noticing when people are trying to like bogart the conversation, or when people like suddenly become louder and like start talking about stuff like loudly or whatever in order to garner attention. And maybe at a certain point in your life you perceive that as like true extroversion or like confidence in some way. And now you're noticing that like those people are acting this way because they feel like if they just sat somewhere quietly or like were not doing so much to call attention to themselves, that no one would actually pay any attention to them. And so, there's a sense of like, I don't know, you could notice them kind of like becoming more pouty around you or something like that. Or obviously, they'll try to spin a narrative of you being cold and stuff like that and like boring or whatever, just because you're not, I guess, like playing the role in this sort of like, I don't know, like script that they've written in their mind of how the people around them are supposed to act and behave. This could be somebody that you are able to observe them in like a detached sort of way to where they're not necessarily speaking directly to you, but you've like been able to observe them interacting with other people. Like especially if you used to be close to this person and you aren't anymore, or even just if you don't talk to them as much as you used to and you're able to sort of see how they attempt to like manipulate social dynamics in some way. You could also be noticing how somebody intentionally like surrounds themselves with like very insecure people so that they can like always be the dominant one in some sphere, you know? Like how truly confident people want to surround themselves with like other truly confident people because they all like feed off that energy, like boost each other up, right? But somebody who is very insecure, who wants to be seen as like, impressive or in some way, they will intentionally like surround themselves with people that they perceive as like somewhat pathetic, I guess, in order to make themselves feel better. It's a sort of thing of like, if I can like tie it to something more concrete, like how some girls who are super insecure will like intentionally uh make friends with people who they perceive to be like less attractive than them, so that when they go out together they're always the best looking one in the group, shit like that. And like if it's a masculine, it's giving that he will like, um I don't know, intentionally like, I don't know, that's kind of toxic. I don't really want to say that, but just they will intentionally like surround themselves with somebody like, I don't know, that they perceive to be like weaker than them. So, making friends with people who have uh maybe some form of like disability, right? Which it can be seen as like, oh, they're so nice and so kind to like be friends with those people. Which like if your intentions are pure, obviously that's good, right? But I'm getting this sense of like somebody who's trying to manipulate their image by intentionally doing something like that to make themselves look better. Like they're intentionally surrounding themselves with people who they believe will like be able to look up to them because they are under the impression that like high, I don't know, like again, in their mind, people who have their shit together would like see straight through them and obviously not be overly impressed with them. This could even be somebody that you used to be somewhat impressed by. And again, this doesn't have to be somebody you used to date or anything. This could be like either a friend or like a dwindling friendship, or like a sibling, relative, like a parent even, And I think that by becoming more observant or whatever about these things, you are starting to recognize and be able to tell the difference between like, I don't know, somebody who's like actually secure in themselves, right? Versus sort of like somebody who's like putting on a caricature of what they believe a confident or like stable person or strong minded person would be like. And like the facade can be very convincing, right? Especially if you've never actually had a grounded model of what, you know because somebody can have like their stuff together like externally or whatever. That doesn't necessarily at all mean that they're balanced within their mind. Like they could be very weak minded, And I think that you're just like gaining the ability to see through, how well somebody dresses, or like somebody's like peacocking, right? It's giving that like you're like gaining the ability to see through someone's peacocking. That's like actually a term or whatever, and so you're able to see like, oh no, regardless of like how this person is like presenting themselves or whatever, they're actually like extremely weak-minded and insecure. And I'm getting that like, so you're not like falling for people's projections of how they want others to view them anymore, right? And that could apply to even people that you are seeing on social media, and like celebrities and stuff like that, politicians, whatever. I would just say that like not everybody has that ability. So, if you want to sort of start going around and, telling other people like, hey, I know you idolize this person or you look up to this person, but actually they're not a good role model because of X, Y, and Z, and I don't know, blah blah blah. They're actually really fake, and because people have like a flawed idea of what it means to actually be somebody who's like, I don't know, someone who's like high value. A lot of people have a very like flawed view of what that is. And a lot of people are still stuck in the mindset that the person who like talks the loudest or talks the most or like is the most braggadocious or whatever is the most the one to idolize in a space or whatever, or like the leader in the space. But it's sort of giving like, I don't know, this person, they care so much about other people's validation, and a true leader obviously doesn't. So they're kind of like this is like a person who thinks of things in a really odd way, like they need people to be following them in order for them to feel superior in some way, right? But the fact that they even like think about shit like that in the first place, and then they do everything to even gain the approval of those that they perceive to be beneath them, they're like the worst type of follower because they have like no backbone at all, you know? And this is a type of person who like if it suited them the best or whatever, they would sort of like embarrass themselves or make themselves like look sort of pathetic or weak in some way if they thought it would like gain the approval of whoever's like in front of them. You know what I mean? Like, some guy who like acts all high and mighty around his friends or whatever, and like he's very strong and capable and stuff like that, but then around girls pretends to be like sickly and weak because he knows that they'll like, try to appeal to their sense of like pathos or whatever, if that's the right one, like pathos or whatever, so that they'll feel sympathetic and like baby this person, right? But again, I'm getting that you just like are noticing this, and it may sort of be turning you off of a lot of things that you used to like. Um, Again, this doesn't have to be a people that you actually know. It could just be that you're like being turned off of like an inauthentic expression of oneself just for the sake of like establishing an image, even on, again, like social media, or with celebrities, to the point where you can't even um you know you can't even like tolerate. I'm almost hearing like reading certain books because it's like, oh, they're trying too hard, and you are kind of getting turned off of anything that makes it seem like that individual is like trying too hard to be seen a certain way. It's almost like I'm hearing like it like is starting to disgust you in some way, um and that's not bad, right? It can be frustrating because that kind of I don't know, it sort of like dilutes the pool of things that you are able to consume without being kind of like turned off of it or whatever. But then it just allows you to fill your life with more things that are actually genuinely high quality inside and out, It's sort of like, they'll say like, "Oh, don't judge a book by its cover" or whatever, but, most people take that to mean like, "Oh, if the book doesn't look good on the cover, you shouldn't judge it and like just read it." But it's giving that like you're learning also not to just fall for something that looks incredible, like, "Oh, the cover looks incredible. This is a name I recognize, and it's like gilded and gold and everything." And you're not like falling for that either. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good book, and I think that you were like learning that and processing that in real time.